Let's do this. Let's do it now. Blake Cousins, we are live. Third Phase Moon. We dodged one bullet. A hurricane. Madeline is just went south of us, so we're safe. But we have another hurricane right basically in our backyard. So we're going to try and keep this radio broadcast open as long as we can. We should be all right. It should be hitting us in a few hours. So hopefully it's all good. It's a hurricane. It's a Cat 1 right now. So 60 to 70 mile an hour winds coming down. We'll see how the night goes. But we wanted to broadcast live on Third Phase of Moon tonight. As usual, Friday. We want to hear your stories in regards to this UFO phenomenon happening right now. And there are things up in our skies that we can't explain. Lots of videos coming into Third Phase Moon. I can't wait to share them with you. It's going to be quite amazing. But let's get to the people. See if they've got some new information. A new encounter. Have you been abducted by UFOs? Have you witnessed a UFO? Call in tonight. The number 347-934-0378. Let's get to it. We have a caller calling in unlisted. If you're there, go ahead. You're live, Third Phase of Moon. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the show.
Thanks. I had to screw my courage up pretty good to call you. I am somebody who has been abducted since a very small child. I was probably born because of it's a long story. It's a long story. My father was in the military, and my mother couldn't have kids, and my life started out strangely. She had polycystic ovarian syndrome, and they hit her up with cobalt radiation to try to make her ovulate, and she wasn't supposed to get pregnant for 6 months, and I was conceived about a week and a half later, and I've had a very interesting life because of that. I remember as a small child seeing things in the sky, and I guess they have a way of making you think like a child when you're very young, and they didn't scare me to death. And just before I hit puberty, they started making me forget, and it's taken me a long time to start recalling things. I've actually put some effort in it because things in the last couple of years are escalating, and so I'm going to talk about it. And I listen to your show a lot, and
appreciate it. I'm glad you called in tonight. I'm glad you called in tonight. We're going to get to some things that we've never heard before. You're a first-time caller. What's your name? Huh?
Sophie.
All right, Sofia, great. Hey, thanks for joining us. We got a lot of rain coming down right here on the Big Island, so hopefully you can read me here clear enough. But okay, let's start from the beginning. Your dad worked in the military. What branch? What did he do?
Okay, this is where I had to screw my courage up. He was a military engineer and an architect, and he did a lot of jobs that I'm not allowed to talk about. We had an incident when I was 8 years old. Some man followed me home from school, and I broke and ran away from him. And when I got home, my parents freaked completely out. And the next thing I know, I have men in black guarding me for the next month. They used to go to school with me and walk me home after that. And I was never allowed to go anywhere or do anything for a long time. We moved during that process. And
so
my dad,
your parents actually knew the men in black. They would speak with them.
Yeah.
The men in black took you to school.
Yeah, they did. Sure did. No kidding. They never talked to me. They didn't try to make friends with me. I was guarded, and when I got older, I got brave enough to ask my dad, why did I have to go through that? My brother also. I have a younger brother, and he just pretty much said, all I'm going to tell you is that what I do is important, and somebody wanted to know what I was doing, and they were willing to abduct one of my kids to do it, get information, and he said that's why.
Wow.
So I've
so
just
let me
lived
ask
with
you,
it my whole life.
yeah, that's amazing. I've never heard of anybody being escorted to school by the Men in Black, and your brother as well. Did you give these guys names? Can you describe to me what kind of clothing they wore? What were their mannerisms?
Basically, they just wore like suit pants and dark, light colored shirts or dark colored shirts. They had on usually long coats. I guess you could describe them as like the like they wear the like a raincoat kind of thing. And I used to call them the Rangers because the Rangers in Texas, those kind of coats, but cloth ones.
Let me ask you
they
this.
had.
Let me ask.
Okay.
So, could they have been just private security? Maybe your dad needed you to be safe, and these were just private bodyguards escorting you to school.
No, these were military. These guys were military all the way. Even at a young age, I knew the difference. There's they carry themselves differently. They're very fit. They're quiet. They're it's a different ballgame altogether. They're not civil. They were not civilians in any way. And my dad told me they weren't. He said they were military. I've had instances my whole life where my father said he had an office, a workroom in our houses, and the door was always locked. And every now and then he'd be in there, and I'd go in to talk to him, and I would see things on his desk. He had also had a drawing board, and he berated me sometimes and said, you don't know what this is. I'm not going to talk about it with you. Don't ask me any questions. Daddy's working, blah, 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 blah. After my father retired, and he didn't retire until he was much, much older. He was in his 70s. I asked him, I said, what were you doing? And he said, I know three things that he did, and it's kind of common knowledge. He knew he worked with Gordon Cooper, who was an engineer also and an astronaut. And they designed all the catacombs. And it was weird because they had him do this project first and then another one behind it. They designed at Disney World in Florida all the underground catacombs and passageways and workrooms and everything. He did the whole entire complex, the whole thing at Disney World. And then a little bit later in my life, he started flying out to Washington all the time. He was working at Dulles Airport. And United was putting in a new terminal. Well, he wasn't working on the terminal. He was working on what was under Dulles Airport. Dulles Airport has a whole underground complex. And I'm probably not supposed to talk about that openly, but I'm going to do it now because I don't think that it's right to keep this stuff wrapped up like they do, He's worked on many military facilities, and stuff like that. So,
all right. Before we get to this, this is incredible. We're doing this live. It is Third Phase Moon Radio right now, and I'm glad everybody's joining us from around the world. We have only a certain amount of time to get through your story tonight, Sophia. So I'm going to extend this a little longer because I want to get to some other callers. But Sophia, can you tell me, let's get back to the Men in Black. When you were escorted to school, how long did this last? What were the other students thinking? Were they kind of creeped out by these guys?
Weird thing. No, I wasn't allowed to talk about it. They would walk me to school, and I would go in, and they wouldn't follow me to the classroom or anything like that. They were always outside. If my principal knew about it, I didn't know a thing. But when I came out, there they were. If I was out on the play field, I could see them across the street walking on the sidewalk. So I knew I was being watched constantly. It lasted for about a month until we moved, and then they were around for a short period of time after that, like a week or so, and then they didn't come anymore. But my life changed drastically. I mean, I had a whole new set of rules about who I went out with. I was constantly escorted by my mom or my dad, or a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle. I mean, we were never left alone after that, never. Our play yards, we had high fences after that, and security, and the system in the house and stuff like that. I mean, it just that's what my life turned into after that happened.
Okay, so now let's get into the abduction scenario. How and when did you realize that you were being abducted by aliens?
I had an experience when I was a teenager where I saw something at night, and I thought I was dreaming afterwards, I thought I had lost my mind. And it stuck in my head. And as I went through life, I started seeing other kinds of craft in the sky. And I got the feeling that I was being followed. And driving one night, I got buzzed by a craft, and that was even weirder. And so I tried to, I started getting paranoid about it. And I would stay up late at night and just, not sleep. And suddenly I realized that stuff was going on, only I wasn't able to stay awake through it. In other words, I would pass out for some reason. I'd lose time. And finally, I had an accident. I hurt myself really bad. And they gave me pain meds. And I wasn't where I live. I was at my brother's house in another city. And I'd just taken the pain meds, and it didn't feel like they were working at all. And so I got up and I started walking around the best I could. And the next thing I know, I feel, you know how the hair goes up on the neck, somebody's in the room with you? And I looked over and I saw two beings, and I think my whole nervous system fell apart at that point. I freaked out. And they were trying to calm me down, and they were being very comforting to me, I guess is the best way to put that. And I realized they were talking to me in my head. They weren't speaking. And I started trying to see them in the dark because I didn't have the light on. I was just trying to walk out into the hall. And I realized that one was really, really tall, way taller than me, and I'm pretty tall. And then the other one was really, really short. And then I realized that, oh, my God, this one of them looks like one of the grays. And the other one kind of looked like a gray, but he was really, really tall. And he was, I don't know how to explain it, but he was more like you and me, so to speak. I don't know how to explain that. He was still really thin, but his features weren't so exaggerated like the shorter guy. And I'm trying to figure out what the hell do I do. And they just pretty much told me they were checking on me because I was hurt, and they were worried about me. And I thought, great, I got aliens worrying about me. This is great. And I tried to have a conversation with them at that point, but they weren't going to stay long. They were leaving, and they wanted me to go take, rest and everything. And I really tried really hard to have a conversation, but they weren't having anything to do with that. They just gave me the overall feeling that they worried about me, and then they just sort of left. When they did, I saw something I never thought I'd see in my entire life. They literally talk about dimensional travel and stuff like that. I saw a big red light engulf them, and I saw swirly stuff all around them, like they were being, and then they were gone. They just disappeared. And it took me 2 weeks to admit to myself that I really saw it up. I was going to chalk it all up to being on a drug, which wasn't that bad. I mean, they just gave me one hydrocodone. That was it. I had broken my elbow. After that, when I came back to where I live, I started seeing things at night. I'd try to lay awake as long as I could, and I started seeing a red light coming, and like an orb would come into my room, and it would lit out these little smaller orbs that were blue and white, and I could see little small colored lights in them, and they would circle around me like they were doing something, and I would always pass out, though. I can't seem to stay awake through the whole thing. It's like they take over and knock me out. I would knock me out too because I'm terrified of it right now. I mean, really scared. Trying not to be, but I can't help myself. It's scary. I have a couple of weird, vague memories of actually leaving my room and going aboard a big ship and being taken someplace, and it wasn't anywhere I'd ever been before, okay? And I was put with others, you know, and it was sort of like they wanted me to learn something, and so I was literally being taught something. And pretty much I think it's I'm a good communicator. Here's one of the other weird things about my life. I was tested by the military for psychic ability, you know, where they do all those stupid tests on you and they put electrodes on your head. And because I had a couple incidences when I was young that scared my parents really bad. And I think that's what they're trying to teach me.
Was this MK Ultra? Were they experimenting with you? Like there's a TV
they were literally.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know. I think it was whatever program they had going on, and I mean, I sat for a whole week every day for hours taking all these different kind of tests. You know, remote viewing tests, psychic tests, electrical field testing, which was really weird, and stuff like that. I mean, if they really wanted to know, and I was young. I mean, I was like 7 years old when they did this, and I kept asking my mom, "What are we going to do with this? You know, where are we going with this? You know, I didn't understand why they were doing it in the first place, and why do they want to know this and all." And she pretty much told me afterwards that it was just like an experiment they were doing, and I was just a testee or la la la, and they were trying to play it down for a long time. I never forgot it though. And over the years, I've had situations where, you know, you get I don't call them premonitions. It's really, really weird. It's more like remote viewing. I have instances where I see things happening, you know, and then they're happening actually in real time. And
let me ask you this, Sophia. Let me ask you this:
okay.
Were there other children around being experimented on? Was there telekinesis involved?
Absolutely. Yeah. They used words like I'm an adult now, so you look everything up from when you have an experience, right? And I was trying to figure out what the hell they were doing, and they were checking me for psychometry, where you can touch something and like get impressions from it, and they were checking me for the remote viewing was really weird because they did 3 different tests on me for that. One where they do the flipping the cards and stuff, and you have to tell them what's on the card, and they score you after so many. And then the other one was where they give you a piece of paper and they put you in a chair on a desk, and in another room there's another person at a desk with a piece of paper and a chair, and they give one of them a picture to look at. And then the other one on the other side is supposed to see what that picture is and draw a picture of it or write a description of it down. And I'm actually pretty good at that. They did where then instead of drawing it or looking at it, then they would put us in separate rooms and get us to say a word and see if the other one would pick up what the word is, or think of a thought or an emotion. I mean, they tried it, different ways, like actual visualization, actual emotional content, stuff like that. I mean, it was they checked a lot of stuff.
Why were they doing this with you? Was it it was obviously military. Were you ever utilized in any kind of government operation that possibly was using your abilities?
No, when my dad realized that it was going to get weird, he put his foot down and said, "No, leave her alone." And but I swear to you, I get checked up on. I mean, I sometimes I feel like they're watching me too. I've always had I've had a couple of jobs that involved government work and stuff like that in my lifetime, and I just know that I'm checked up on and watched, you know, and it's not a thing I can do about it. I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. I know the difference between when I'm being visited by ET and when they're bugging me. Everything they do is very, how do I put this? They don't have the same abilities they do at all. I mean, it's like, you know, I'll wake up and I'll see like a yellow bar light scan in my room, and I know that's the military. That ain't ET. ET don't need to do that. Or I'll be walking around and glimpse of somebody following you, you know, or stuff like that. I just know I'm being watched. My phone's probably tapped too. They're loving this, I'm sure. So that kind of thing, you know. And I just don't care anymore. I just don't care. Something's coming. I got the huge feeling that, well, it's more than a feeling. I sort of know that I want to describe it the right way. An event is coming. We're going to experience something soon. It's coming, and it's kind of weird. And I sometimes feel like, you know how you see people saying, "Oh, the end is coming," and la 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 la. I don't think it's that, but I think that we're expected to do something with ourselves. You know, we're on the brink of screwing up royally or advancing ourselves majorly. You know, and I know that they don't want to directly interfere, but we are manipulated. I mean, I think we're here because of them in the first place. See what I'm saying? It's I know we are. There's no way we got here
Sure.
on our own. We're seeded, planted, whatever.
What we want to do right here at Third Phase of Moon is invite you back. Maybe next week, Friday, if we could get you back. We got some more questions from you, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions after we post this on our YouTube channel. Would you be able to call in next week? Because we think that would be great. There's some insight I'm sure we haven't even gotten to the surface. Sophia, how about it?
Oh, I know. Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, because there's more than one type that's been visiting me my whole life. I mean, there's 3 or 4 different kinds of ET that I know that I recollect seeing, you know, and the different types of machines and everything. I mean, it's interesting.
And
So,
I got a big feeling that it has a lot to do with your father and what he was doing while working at the base, for sure. So definitely keep in touch, Sophia. Appreciate you calling into Third Phase of Moon. Come back Friday.
You're welcome.
Okay?
All righty. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much. It takes a lot of guts from what you just heard, and it is quite amazing what we hear right here at Third Phase of Moon as it comes in real time. Everybody stand by. We're going to get some more callers. We got a lot of callers calling in, so we'll try and get to you. We'll be right back. Blake Cousins.
I was probably born because of it's a long story. It's a long story. My father was in the military, and my mother couldn't have kids, and my life started out strangely. She had polycystic ovarian syndrome, and they hit her up with cobalt radiation to try to make her ovulate, and she wasn't supposed to get pregnant for 6 months, and I was conceived about a week and a half later, and I've had a very interesting life because of that. I remember as a small child seeing things in the sky, and I guess they have a way of making you think like a child when you're very young, and they didn't scare me to death, and just be.
Let's do this. Let's do it now. Blake Cousins, we are live, Third Phase Moon. We've dodged one bullet. Hurricane Madeline is just went south of us, so we're safe. But we have another hurricane right basically in our backyard. So we're going to try and keep this radio broadcast open as long as we can. We should be all right. It should be hitting us in a few hours, so hopefully it's all good. It's a hurricane. It's a Cat 1 right now, so 60 to 70 mile an hour winds coming down. We'll see how the night goes, but we wanted to broadcast live on Third Phase of Moon tonight, as usual, Friday. We want to hear your stories in regard.
Before I hit puberty, they started making me forget, and it's taken me a long time to start recalling things. I've actually put some effort in it because things in the last couple of years are escalating, and so I'm going to talk about it. And I listen to your show a lot, and
appreciate it.
I'm just going to get it off my chest.
I'm glad you called in tonight. We're going to get to some things that we've never heard before. You're a first-time caller. What's your name? Huh?
Sophie.
All right, Sofia, great. Hey, thanks for joining us. We got a lot of rain coming down right here on the Big Island, so hopefully you can read me here clear enough. But, okay, let's start from the beginning. Your dad worked in the military. What branch? What did he do?
Okay, this is where I had to screw my courage up. He was a military engineer and an architect, and he did a lot of jobs that I'm not allowed to talk about. We had an incident when I was 8 years old. Some man followed me home from school, and I broke and ran away from him. And when I got home, my parents freaked completely out. And the next thing I know, I have men in black guarding me for the next, month. They used to go to school with me and walk me home after that. And I was never allowed to go anywhere or do anything for a long time. We moved during that process. And
so
my
your
dad...
your parents actually knew the men in black? They would speak with them?
Yeah.
The men in black took you to school?
Yeah, they did.
So this UFO phenomenon happening right now, and there are things up in our skies that we can't explain. Lots of videos coming into Third Phase Moon. I can't wait to share them with you. It's going to be quite amazing. But let's get to the people. See if they've got some new information. A new encounter. Have you been abducted by UFOs? Have you witnessed a UFO? Call in tonight. The number 347-934-0378. Let's get to it. We have a caller calling in unlisted. If you're there, go ahead. You're live, Third Phase of Moon. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the show.
Thanks. I had to screw my courage up pretty good to call you. I am somebody who has been abducted since a very small child.